Hello, how are you, beautiful people? Here we are, and it is Reset Sniper time. That's right, I've got my coronavirus ball in hand. It comes in Gulfstream colors, Porsche orange and light blue. This is my personal favorite combination for the coronavirus ball. Very, very bouncy, very, very catchy, in fact. You can catch it really well and very easily. Anyway, time to talk to you about the Reset Sniper and what we're going to be doing with you today. There's two Francises in the room. I'm going to talk to you about the sudden escalation that we've seen, which is bringing on the next phases. So this is reset, but actually, like everything, there's always an overlap area with the crypto sniper, the market sniper, as well as the reset sniper, and we're always in that sweet spot. Hit the like button, please, and share. Thank you very much. T-shirts in the links below. Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple of articles surrounding events that seem to have once again got a little heated between Uncle Sam and the yellow man. Yes, that's not meant to be in any way derogatory. It's symbolic. The Chinese and the Americans, the West at large, but particularly the Americans, the big whip cracker, the tough boy at the holding the whip handle, or so it believes. So we've had a couple of articles come out, and this is going to be the gist of what I'm going to be discussing with you today. First of all, China starts a major trial of state-run digital currency. So, of course, this is central bank coin for China, and much the same way we've heard and had some discussions of Fed coin. And the main gist of the article here is in recent months, they've been in development, they've been warning this. China's central bank has stepped up its development of the RMB. Now everything, we're going to be seeing a lot of this. We're going to see the EUSD. We're going to see the E. It's like iPhones, you know, it's I this and I that and I arsehole and I anything you want in their product range. Now we're going to have the E of everything, which is quite funny because in Africa, we have a number of African languages which are exactly like that. They say e-milk, e-tea, e-coffee. So it's going to be like going back to my childhood and learning Northern Sotho. Anyway. So the RMB is coming, good people, and it's currently being operated and tested. This is the nature of this article. Give us some time post loadout and you can have a proper look at it. It's quite interesting that this is in fact being conjoined with a major blowout yesterday where the Chinese went out empirically on a ledge and said it's time for the end of the USD hegemony. So they start trading effectively central bank related crypto. Don't confuse this just with being your internet banking money. When they do this e-money, this is going to be central bank issued. It's not going to, it could go through the commercial banks, but it could also be sent directly to a wallet to citizenry. This is going to be more of the blockchain-y type money that is full ledger and full trackability and full open source. Yes, something to think about when we go all crypto crazy and excited. What about that Monero, which doesn't cover, or any other privacy coin that makes it? Who's the longest standing? Who keeps developing? At the moment, the one that catches my eye is Monero, but we don't want our name written on the back and what we bought forever. But anyway, blockchain and crypto is coming. The government does want it, and it serves its purpose. Hence why I've often asserted people that became too belief-orientated in crypto failed to see the new game and trap that the control structure is setting for them. Very early on in crypto, I said I'm trading it and I'm bullish it and I'm super macro bullish it because I'm bearish their dying cycle, and here cometh the man, cometh the hour. You know, it's like your tired old horse, and here comes the Lone Ranger with his bandito goggles, with this on his bouncy stallion and a spare horse for you. Isn't it amazing that you're doing this runaway and the stagecoach is behind and firing its rifle at you? It's all just about over. and your poor old mule is gasping and gulping and falling off the pace, and you're being reined in, and here comes Tonto. I hate coincidences. You got to remember that. I hate those coincidences. Too many of them happening and going down. And cometh the hour, cometh the opportunity, and here it is. Blockchain, e-money. Everybody gets to see what you're doing, what you're earning, etc., etc. Bitcoin. They'll be able to add some of their own little privacy scams they want that might stop your neighbor checking how much you make. But in due course, certainly you can rest assured, government will always know what they need to know. Out of your open source CIA bank account. Aren't you looking forward to that? The dark state bank account, brought to you by the Fed banking cartel, all the quangos funded by Rockefeller money, and brought to you also by Bill Gates, the pharma industry, and all the oligarchical, where you're meant to spend. Competition is sin. He said it. That's what he means. There's a one world beer company. There's a one world retailing company. They're all coming, and they're all owned by much the same cartel. All the chips get tipped to one end of the table, and you ain't standing there. You're not in the club. You're not a pedo. Or maybe you're not. I don't know. Anyway, so that's article number 1. China starts major trial of Run Digital. Now, I wanted to also remind you of something that was said by Mark Carney. He waited till he was just about thrown out. He's no longer the Bank of England head, by the way. So just bear awareness of that. But in his sunset days, he walked and had a chat as the elder statesman of the great empire that once was England, the United Kingdom, the kingdom of all the United States of Wales, Scotland, and England. He strolled the gardens with Mr. Powell and was stating the following. He has challenged the dollar position as the world's reserve currency, and arguing it could be replaced by a global digital alternative. Again, that blockchain element, not e-money as in your money in your internet bank account. And to end, and I love this, a savings glut that resulted in 10 years low inflation and ultra low interest rates. You see, you did it, guys. You broke the economic system. It wasn't them. You saved too much. How come we've got such a debt bubble and the central bank has created so many bonds for purchasing, so many gilts, so many T-bills, an absolute glut that they've had to lower the interest rates, and it's because the savers spoiled the game and we have to encourage people to spend. That framing, and that the Guardian newspaper, the absolute little gobshites, has the absolute chutzpah, and that's the word I choose to use, of a Zionist to put in a statement like that, a savings glut, as if there was a saved dollar for every dollar borrowed, not a fractional reserve system where actually we've created loans out of thin air on a pure digital basis to the umpteenth degree, and that actually most of those bonds, the biggest holder is the Federal Reserve itself, because there's not enough savers with money that want to earn next to no interest rate. They think, hey, if I've got to earn next to no interest rate, I'll have gold, thank you. At least I know you aren't going to print 6 trillion of that. No, sir. Anyway, back to the story. He's likening the move to the end of sterling. This is the man for the end of all cycles. My dear American friend, just coming into your tenor, listen to grandfather, the man of empire once before and long gone. Your time may be coming. You to take it naturally and step down with good grace. The technology arrives, a global Woku UN coin, central bank coin of certain privileged nation states that are properly Zioned up to the hilt. These times are coming, and you must recognize you're going to have to take a bit of pain and suffer the tough years that Britain had as the sick man of Europe through the 50s, 60s, into the 70s. You will have to take a little bit of that pain for the greater good. The privilege you have been afforded for so long is no longer there. And by this, he positions himself as a libertarian, to end the dollar hegemony. We're all for that. The problem is what he sees bringing in and who will be controlling it. And remember this, fellows. They will never, ever let you have your own money. Another time. They will never let you have your own money. For the final time, it's no concept that it will ever be allowed to happen. The Rothschilds said it, I care not who maketh the laws, providing I control the issuance of money. You will never be allowed to have your own money. If Bitcoin was not servicing the role and the agenda of what they bring, it would already be outlawed, hacked to bits by quantum computers, dark state CIA agents, tapping the best Russian programmers, Chinese programmers, American programmers, collecting them from the world over, sticking them there in CIA HQ, and absolutely ensuring they broke it. That is a cardinal fact. They want you to think that they're tolerating it. This is the horse that is riding next to your tiring horse, as the two horses pull up alongside each other for the Zionist rider to jump off the dead onto the new, and you're that horse, and he's riding you. That's the game, fellow. That's the game. We're busy switching ponies. That's all it truly is. Does that mean I don't like crypto? I'm anti-crypto. I want to trade things to go up because I want to position myself financially, knowing the agenda and the great game that my coronavirus ball, which is so easy to catch and to pass on to a mate for him to catch, and all those other amazingly special things that they have planned for us, I want to recognize their game, I want to position accordingly, and I want to be ready to make the most of it. Because if you can build wealth by being smart instead of toil, doing menial nonsense, it's a different quality of life. Yes, we're going to have our freedom impeded immensely, good fellows, but you may as well have wealth on your side. If you want to find out more, get the free mini-series below, book for a chat below. It's all in the links. It's all there. Go and do it. We're here to take you through it, and we're busy trading the FX. In fact, time for a joke before I have a look at the comments. My missus was saying, you never pay any attention to me. It's all just work, work, work with you. It's always about the markets. And I looked at her and I said, but I'm so happy around you. 99% of the time I'm happy. I told her she's like an upside HVF with real overperformance on the break. A bit like the USD TRI, I explained, just under the key level of significance on the $7. And I'm expecting the break with an upside move and great profits and a potential overperformance. I said, you are this. And she threw a lunch at me, and I can't understand why. I really can't. Women are just difficult to understand. But anyway, you can lay on the flattery, and they're just not appreciating it. But anyway, let's have a look what the beautiful people say that have jumped on board. St. Gaulis, yes, indeed. Any chance there will be enough real GDP to pay the debt off? What do you think? I don't even think I need answer that. I don't even think. There is no debt to be paid off. All debt will be defaulted on. It's an absolute. I always say, you should say, on balance of probabilities. About the future, you truly know very little. You can only guess. But let me just say, if there's one thing that I have pretty high conviction that I'm prepared to almost get absolutist, none of that debt gets paid off. The way you pay off debt is you devalue it into the ground with first deflation that licenses you to prompt the greatest hyperinflation spike that you can then generate as the mark of trillions goes by. I mean, actually, the first QE amounts were a couple of $100 billion. People forget that. And then we did QE2, QE3, and all of us, and they're all hundreds of billions. We're just straight in there. We're straight in there on trillions this time, guys. Straight in there on trillions. So let's just recap trillion. 1,000 billion. And billion, 1,000 millions. And let's just understand a million. You say a million, and you count one every second, and I keep you awake for 12 and a half days in a row, and you keep counting, you will eventually, after 12 and a half days, get to a million. If I say billion, you've got to do that 1,000 times. That's going to take you over 32 years to count to 1 billion. No sleep, no meals, or if you're eating, you're getting a number in with every second while you're chewing. That's the game. I keep you on life support and you count for 32 years of your life for a single billion. Last crisis, they did hundreds of those. Now we do thousands, a multiple of 10. We've done 6,000 of those 32 years of seconds. 6,000 of those 32 years of seconds. So the entire family of your generation, the generation before it, and before that, and before that, and before that, until I've got 6,000 people of your family tree sitting there, all doing the 32-year counting seconds with no sleep, no rest, and no meals, and keeping you on life support systems. Then you have the 6 trillion that we've done, and we've just started. We've truly just started. This is just started. People are going to become ambivalent when they drop 10 trillions and 20 trillions, and by the time you accumulate what's in the end, you're going to be talking 50 and 100, and when we look at it globally, I reckon we're going to be at a quad. That's right, a quad is a quadrillion, which is 1,000 trillions, which, as I've already explained. So you get the number. I'm not going to over-egg that one. So this is scale that you haven't seen before. And the more they do quadrillions, guess what happens? Got to show you some fun charts. Let's get the library up and show you some fun charts. The more they do quadrillions and the more they do printing, the slower the velocity is of money. I want to show you this one. This is an economic chart. So here you have debt to GDP ratio. As the debt to GDP absolutely is mooning, and that's because debt is climbing and we're printing, we're quadrillion printing. We're going for the big one. So we print trillions and trillions, and we're looking to the rest of the world to print trillions and trillions, and they're talking of V-shaped recovery, and it just, it's a bit of a sticky recovery, it's more U-shaped, but I'm sure we'll V soon. Meanwhile, it's absolute L and fizzle, even with the QE. It's a sagging L. As the debt to GDP goes through the moon, the velocity, the circulation of the money is falling. So it's kind of like momentum. The formula for momentum is mass times velocity. For those of you that watched rugby, Jonah Lomu, the New Zealand wing, was a force of nature. So I think he was around 6'4" or 6'3". He weighed 125 kilos at his heaviest, and this guy could run in the 11s for 100 at his fastest. Maybe not when he was 125, but probably when he was about 115 kgs. So the guy was a wall of muscle and mass. He just made a career out of crushing Frenchmen and Englishmen, which personally I thought was quite funny. And he steamrolled right over him. And momentum, in his case, was a combination of his mass times by his velocity. And when it came to his combination of outright speed, which was close to one of the fastest, and his mass, that was close to one of the heaviest, included forwards who could barely run around the park, he had the highest overall collection of both velocity and mass. It made him an absolute comet. It was like being punched by George Foreman throwing anvils at you. You just got squashed because the guy was fast, big, and hard. And now money's the same. You can pump money into the system, but if nobody does anything and no one's spending, and you're just giving it to a group of banks and they're just sitting on it, and no one's spending and everyone's sitting like this, there's no velocity, it means nothing. Jomo didn't have momentum when he was standing still. He couldn't squash me when he was standing still, providing I wasn't standing under his feet already. But the minute he started walking, he had some momentum. The minute he went faster, you have real momentum. In the same way, an economy is the amount, the mass of the money thrown into the system. But if it's all stacked in the corner, and nobody's doing anything, no one buying, nobody selling, ain't doing anything. The minute you go 0.1, somebody somewhere is putting in some energy, generating a product, and selling something that somebody else is doing. You have a bit of heat and a bit of circulation. The more money they are packing in, the more it is going slower. So in actual fact, in Main Street, that's you and I, Peasant Valley, in Main Street, the velocity just goes down the more they pump money, because the money's being devalued, but there's no place and not much things to do it. And all the wealth that is being given cheap, Allah, how about that Lagarde, IMF now to EU head, negative, lending money to banks at a negative interest rate. Here Deutsche Bank, here Commerce Bank, have a few hundreds of billions, and every day you don't need to pay me that money, you can pay me a little bit less, and I'm going to compound that so that it keeps getting less. How about those European credit cards? 26% for peasants in the street. Oh, so let's see it. We create this huge dilution. We kill the value of currencies by diluting the money you have in the pocket that you've worked for a long time ago when you agreed a certain value, a certain amount of buying power that could do something for you, that you held on to for years and saved, that have been earning nothing as a saver, and boom, suddenly there's twice as much currency, it's got half the buying power, and guess what? You still get nothing on your saving. In fact, they're going to start negativing you so that they can give the money to Deutsche Bank, who needs it because they've got a hole in their balance sheet. I could put 1 trillion of my coronavirus balls through it and still not fill it up. So that's the new game. Always putting you on the wrong side of a compound interest equation. And then when they've made all their oligarchical links in the chain, such as the banking system absolutely bankrupt, introduce negative rates that actually decreases debt. That decreases debt the longer you hold it. Isn't it amazing? But you still pay positive. You see, it's a two-tier game. There's a special club and you ain't in it. You pay 26.9% on your credit card, or 21%, or 16.9%, depending on your score, yada yada, fish-based, all that malarkey. But your credit card debt is higher. Your mortgage debt is higher. Your mortgage debt is all higher. They print money, dilute you, and give it at negative rates to plug holes in banks' balance sheets that should have gone bust last crash. Not that we ever fully recovered, and that's the game. That's what Lagarde is doing. So the more they're giving this dead money, these huge amounts of proliferated money, not to you, but they moved it and they've taken it and they've given it to a goddamn bank. They are shoring up that bank to limp on, to zombie on for longer while they play their shell game and get all their dominoes in a row, well organized and set out for you. That's what they're doing. And they're starting to talk about the crash of the dollar as world currency unit. They're all starting to think, isn't this an idea for which the time is finally coming? We've all known this is their game. They're getting there. Remember, don't view it nationalistically. Yellow man ain't bad. He ain't any badder than he ever was. And white man sure as hell hasn't been good, neither himself. Go look again. I refer you to the opium wars in China by Britain and America and everything. The whole concept of good and bad and seeing things through a nationalist level, this is an orchestrated puppet game, guys. It's an orchestrated puppet game. The head of China and Trump go behind walls and piss themselves laughing together at how they're going to kill each other's citizens if they go to war. And they probably have a bet on who manages to kill more of the other's citizens in any potential war that comes. Maybe there won't even be one. They'll fight Iran. They'll do something else. It's a shell game. They are all on the inside of all the major nations. Stop thinking nationalistically. This is globally coordinated through transnational organizations that are like the Rockefeller Foundation, like Bill Gates' ID 2020 and all the other little things he's proxy invested in, and all the other things that Venrock is proxy invested in, and all the other banks and all the other things. These are your masters. And they are transnational. But they'll pretend for red puppet to fight yellow puppet and blue puppet to fight green puppet, etc., to keep you entertained. So many people going, yeah, I'm going to stop buying Chinese stuff. Screw them. You know what's going to happen? They're going to mess up the supply chain. They're going to say, we're doing an anti-globalization part back step. Maybe not the whole hog, but some of it part back step. What's going to happen? We're going to re-onboard manufacturing here in America and in Europe, and the Chinese can go to hell. Da, 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 da. This is the story, etc., etc. And we're going to punish them for COVID. They did it. It came out of Wuhan. This is like the Russians being sanctioned for the Malaysian Airlines and all the horse manure fake narratives they built around Ukraine, etc., etc. They want financial war to implement what they want to implement. It's all part of a game. The one's being punished by the other, and America's the big boss who's whipping everybody. Absolutely. Until it stops that way. The real problem are your transnational organizations. So the Bank of England said a new digital currency backed by a large group of nations would unlock dollar funds that governments currently hoard as an insurance policy in uncertain times. That is what he's saying. This new digital currency, a blockchain of sorts. This will be a New World Order coin. Only I doubt they'll go with that name. So when you see this, yuan crashes after Trump weighs blocking retirement fund. The yuan needs to crash. I've showed you a diagram before. I've shown you a diagram before of global wealth size. I can certainly try dig it out again quickly. It is the currencies that have been issued globally, how much of the debt in US dollars is based in Southeast Asia. If you follow my Twitter feed, you will have seen this many times, and it's very much an economic image. I'll see if I can dig it out again. In fact, I might have shown it on one of the previous streams before. The debt that we have, fundamental debt that we have. Here we go. Let's dig it out. Come on up. Money to supply. There you go. We've got it. China needs an excuse. China needs an excuse for its currency to be down. Okay, I tell you what. You pick on me and you say real bad things about me, and then you say you're going to fine me, and then you do this and you crash my economy, then I can kill my debt by cutting it in half when I devalue my currency. How about that? Guess what happens? Most of their issuance of yuan is at a certain level to the dollar. If you halve that level, that debt that's in yuan halves in dollar terms. They have 28 trillion, guys. They have 28 trillion relative to the US's 14 trillion. They're not as big as the US. In population, they're far larger. Economically, they're not. If you wanted to just pull even with the US, you need to halve your dollar-denominated value debt. But it's not denominated in dollars. It's denominated in Chinese yuan. So devalue the yuan by half. Perfect. Now you're 14 trillion in dollar terms of debt, and you're approximately the same as America. Look at all the other pink nations. The South Korean won. You didn't know it to be that high, did you? Just after pound, gold, and look at Bitcoin market cap down at the bottom there at 183, gold at 7.5 trillion. You can see the scale of M2 debt in dollar terms right here. All the pinks are all from Southeast Asia. Wow. Okay. So we're getting an understanding. We're getting an understanding. So yellow man bad act. Here we go. We pull faces at each other. We do these firm handshakes, eye to eye. These guys are laughing their heads off. They know the game. They know the drill. They know what's coming. Whether, even if it were to become a physical war, whether it just stays a financial, technological war, who knows? But whatever they're doing is planned, and it's part and parcel of bringing in the new currency. And it looks like it's the other nations have asked for it. Soon there'll be other BRICS nations that say, you know, we'd like to support China in this call, you know, in South Africa. Soon, Cyril Ramaphosa, you know, our dollar debt has skyrocketed through the roof. We battled to get dollars. We printed rands. Our currency's crashed. The Turks on the Turkish lira, you know, this dollar-based debt, and now we can't print dollars. Only they can, and we've got to print so many lira, and then it just devalues our currency even more, and our debt just stays ever higher as the currency value goes down. Hey, you know, it's time we had a global world currency. Isn't that nice? An original thought. Only all these little trolls pop up and say it. Kind of like when Japan Bank of Japan all said the economic thing is the green agenda is the most critical agenda that central banks currently face. 1 hour after Lagarde said it for the Eurozone, who said it 3 hours after the Bank of England's heading out. Little moron from Canada, the chap I've just spoken about, Mark Carney, all said it. Talk about a little synchronized coming to the same conclusion. It's kind of like me waking up one morning at the ripe old age of 53 and saying, damn, I want a pink BMX. And somewhere else in the world, my best mate woke up the same time and he also thinks a pink BMX. And then a Japanese bloke who's roughly the same age as me, who I did business with once, also thinks, right now, the thing I most need is a pink BMX. Wouldn't that be kind of unlikely? No, all these guys woke up at the same time. It's coordinated. If you don't get that, you're not paying attention. It's coordinated. So here we have a ways of dealing with things. Germans are looking at things. We're looking at things. We're talking about a lot more money than Germany's talking about, because Europe wants to send an invoice for COVID to China. What a bunch of baloney. They've all created this. They've all created this. I don't bat for China. I mean, I know there's people that have dogs in cages and eat them. I hate that. I love animals. But you know what? This is drivel. This is drivel. They want to turn you nationalistic and they want to turn you yellow man bad. Yellow man ain't any worse than he's ever been, and you ain't much better. If you're even ever close to being better, you're quite potentially worse. As part of the Western psychopathic banking cartel system. So what will this mean? What's this all happening? Where am I taking you with you? You want a transgendered pink BMX, or do you want to see where this is taking you? The pegs against the dollar are going to fail. It's coming. The supply chains are going to fail. You don't switch off one nation being your workshop and bringing all your stuff in for Walmart and everything and just go, I'll just turn the switch on America made. Quink. Pop. Factories, steaming, goods, thrown out. Woo, 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 woo. You just don't do that. You just don't, but they're going to try. And there's going to be huge holes in the supply chain, and that's part of the game, and those failures will be, who'd have thought we'd see that coming? Unfortunately, we can't buy this, and we don't have the links now with China to do X, Y, Z anymore, and we aren't buying from them, and we've sanctioned them and all of that, so we're just going to go out. And there's also been quite a few things on the food front where there seems to be almost orchestrated shortages. Some waste going this way and orchestrated shortages going the other way. They need the next stage. They want you rioting in the streets. They want the peasants rioting in the streets. They need pain. They need pain. It is going to be a summer of discontent, my good people, through now until my guess for the next lockdown, where having spoilt your Easter and the late period of your winter, they're going to now spoil your early winter with destroying your Christmas and New Year and getting you in an extended lockdown well before. That's a prediction I'm making, and watch what's coming now for your summer of discontent. Social unrest, looting of shops by those most prone to want to do that. Cops and military now becoming quite clearly working against citizenry. So a live fire event, and I hope to be wrong on this, in a number of nations where paramilitary police, I've gone on about my Bobby and his truncheon, how he's turned into a paramilitary cop overnight. Paramilitary police and army actually open fire on citizenry. D-Day is coming. You need to talk to people that are in the armed forces and in the police forces if you have any family or friends in that realm. They need to understand there's a greater game, and their masters do no good. And they are serving an ill cause, and I was just following orders is not an acceptable excuse for delegating thinking through the rational, critical part of your brain, saying, why have I been given a uniform and firing live rounds on my own citizens? Pass that one on. It's part of your to-do list coming out of this. It's real workshop. We need your help. You need to wake up those in uniform, because it's not going to be on for that. They're orchestrating this event. A bit of supply shortages, an argy-bargy with China, maybe a Cold War a la Russia. This is going to be where we went Russia man bad all the time. It's now going to be yellow man bad, etc., etc. And there's going to be sanctions, invoices. China's going to go, nothing to do with us. We're not paying this. We're not paying that. Well, if you don't pay this, then there's going to be consequences. We won't buy. Supply chain shortage throughout, etc., etc. I can't see lockdown at Christmas in UK, says Chris. Chris, I know, did you see a Plandemic over Easter? Maybe you didn't see that either. I thought of the Four Horsemen. I didn't focus much on pandemics. I have to be honest. I haven't got a single YouTube. I'd be the first to say I had. I haven't got a single YouTube where I said they're going to do the disease thing. I've always called, I did refer to Zika and everything as drills for such a thing, but I absolutely missed that one to actually make the call that they're going to do it. And it's obvious. In hindsight, it's obvious. To get the stuff under our skin, it's vaccinations. It's got to be. To have vaccinations, you need the disease that you're defending everyone from. The chip, the ID 2020, this is such a good link. Oh, I probably closed it. I'll have to dig it out. I'm going to open that signal for me. I'm going to do that and find the link. I really want to find it. I'd love for you guys to read this. ID 2020, the Gates in London, all the Imperial College in the UK, all these places that they're funding. And the article, this is an amazing article that joins so many dots of who's working for who. You've got to really, truly see it. It's coming. It's coming, and these guys are such orchestrated, and it's globally through the leadership in every nation. So what's the next thing? I hope we get to live and survive and spend our trading profits, by the way. You're going to have to be smart. You're going to have to go off grid. We're going to have to watch for key countries that resist. I've heard that Portugal might say no to vaccinations until somebody's bumped off or given so much money, he does make them mandatory. We've got to follow these things. What's going on in the country. We've got to make our plans accordingly. But the trade is Far Eastern currencies to slip. If they go full no supply or substantial reduced supply chain from China, this whole Marco Polo belt route comes very much under question. It's not going to stop going ahead, but it's going to be a real problem. There's going to be no logistics to push up and down, backwards and forwards on it. This could mean, or substantially reduced logistics that are coming from it, and a winding away and incentives to buy local. We can go back to a nationalism model for a degree. I don't think we can fully deglobalize, in my opinion, but that could do real damage to an export economy. And China is a manufacturing export economy. It's a manufacturing and export economy. Japan is a high-tech, very high quality of engineering production line, and could get some benefit. And I could see the yen, as Japan is kind of the Western boy of the East, and is separate, there's a hostile relationship with China, an uncomfortable relationship with China, and of course our Korean won. How does the Korean won, South Korean won, handle a major downgrade in currency in China without seeing its own currency lose value too? And it's lost its relationship against the USD JPY. They're not sharing not trade secrets. They're not. Their two dark states are not working together anymore in terms of surveillance, and they're unwinding their relationship a little bit. So Seoul and Tokyo aren't getting on. That's interesting because actually South Korea, capitalistic, Samsung, many good brands, etc. But suddenly they become undermined, isolated. Are they tied to China, which has lost half its value in a currency? The pegs to fail. Too many pegs. Hong Kong peg. Chinese soft peg. Lots of pegs. Of course, there's also the Saudi peg. The Saudis got bullied into cutting production by their big brother, their big Zionist brother. So there's been some cut in productions. All these pegs to the dollar, many of which have lasted way too long, are going to fail. They're going to fail, and now's when they happen. And if you want to get momentum for your end of dollar days, this is what you need. Lots of failure. It didn't work. It didn't work. We tried to peg to the dollar, but it didn't work. Then this happened and that happened, and Trump did this, Trump did that. It all kicked off. So here we go. Let's have a look at these comments. Lots of coincidences beyond imagination, says Layers of the Onion. Jacques Soden. So do we still buy dollar for now? So right now, actually, dollar looks awful. Dollar looks awful. DXY, that's an inverted chart and it's climbing upwards. That's an inverted chart. In other words, euro dominance. Against the Japanese yen, dollar looks awful. Down break through a grind line, broadening structure, probably continuation downside. We called dollar strength to come as part of the macro things. Right now, it's crap. It's going to be in a pullback period. It's not looking great. Bitcoin against the dollar. Now, some of that is Bitcoin, yes, but it's two parts to that. Bitcoin strong, and it's touched the other side of our broadening pattern. I think a little bit of a softening for Bitcoin, but it was so strong since its capitulation, it's almost taken back this head and shoulder neckline and run through it. So the rally has come for Bitcoin, and it's back in the game again. It's back in the game again. So that's another measure for it. Everyone will say, well, that's Bitcoin specific, but you're getting a lot of things that are Bitcoin specific. What about the Polish zloty? Well, we told you about the Polish zloty potentially being good for a setup. Maybe it's a downside. Who knows? Who knows? Nestling against the ground line, maybe we first go down. It's done an immense amount on the higher time frames. Look at that. Boom chakalak. No harm in coming back to the 50% mark on a sell-off. So dollar actually is weak right now. Macro, we're expecting the big push up, but actually physically right now dollar is weak. Dollar is weak indeed. Let's go back to what else we have on China out of our friends in Zero Hedge. So we have the yuan crash. We'll skip past that. Rabo, this is how we get to the unthinkable 10 handle in the yuan. So some of you are wondering, what is he talking about? He's talking about the Chinese yuan currency. So if I were to get up the Chinese yuan, people say it's unthinkable. I think it's not even remotely unthinkable. I think it needs to halve. Never mind the 10. What about the 14? We're at 7. We're at 7. A little bit of a bleed up there. I think it comes down first before it goes up. But what if we get a nice continuation pattern? When the dollar has its huge day, I think we go double. It needs to halve at least in my reading, and it could go beyond. But right now, maybe a sell-off first with the dollar weakness. Everyone's wrong-footed. Everyone's getting the news. By the time the news is hitting you guys, it's too late for the trade. You must be getting the news as your trade is hitting its take profit. As the news is coming in, you're at your take profit. That's what we have as HVF method. You've got to have already been in the trade. It's a take profit. What you get is a down leg now on dollar weakness as everybody's responding to the news, chasing in, buying the dollar. Bum, 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 must have dollars, must have dollars. Boom. Pullback, wind up, breaks later. You get shaken out, part of the dog leg, as you respond to the news. Good. Let's see what else some of you have to say. What do you think of the Euro USD? So the Euro USD is like the inverted dollar index. It looks something like that because most of it is made of the euro. I think it could go, the dollar index could go back down to 97.4. That's what that target is, 97.4. You want details like this on a daily basis, you want to be in our community. You want to grab that in there. If you're interested and you're an investor and you're trading and these decisions can have some value. The macro dollar strength, the dollar milkshake, still on. But don't forget, we've done an immense amount We've done an immense amount. So this is the inverted chart of the dollar index. It looks more like the Euro USD, the normal Euro USD. A huge loss of value. It's natural to have a little bit of a bump and retrace. They can't afford for everyone to get the game. It can't be disorderly. There's got to be, for every spill, a rebound. They're going to keep trying to balance the plates. That's the nature of what it's all about. Chris F., what about the Aussie USD? Super quick for you. By the way, we're doing a non-farm. You come on for $197, you get a full hour and a half of exactly this little bit of freestyling that I'm giving you now. You'll get that not this Friday, because non-farm is the 8th. It's the first day of the month. They don't tend to do it if it's the first day. Non-farm Friday, Friday week. The links are below. Come and grab it. It's all about the charts. No news, no chit-chat, no speculation on reset. What's the trade? Totally trade focused. Crypto as well. 3 hours with a half-hour break. So maybe some of you will need that. You'll also have all the data of next week baked into it, and we'll trade the news. We don't actually trade the news. We'll trade the setup if there's a setup, and the news sometimes can be the triggering event. We won't trade it if it ain't there. So I'll give Aussie USD, and that's my last one. If you want to get more detail, then you can, and I do a more detailed analysis. By the way, this is a huge, let me just make sure I've got the inverted scale. I'm triggering you guys a little bit with this inverted scale. It's very confusing. You've got to learn to see charts upside down. This is your Australian on a monthly basis. This was your high. When the whole Western world fell apart and Australia was still getting Chinese money. 1st of August 2011, 1.10, worth more than $1 by, you got 10 extra American cents for your Aussie. Fell to 55. That's a halvening at the extremity high to the extremity low. Now, you don't have to get perfectly in at the top and perfectly in the bottom. It's almost not going to happen. But imagine you got 30% move and you stayed net short and you were watching this. It could have been possible. You would have been sitting with that short for the better part of a decade. That's how it's worked. Net down, down, down. We've been bears on Aussie for an extended period. They are letting out the steam of a double cycle property boom. Their banks are all bust. They need to devalue their currency to keep the property at their value so that the mark-to-market value of the collateral in the banks is not making them insolvent for what they lent on the property. That is the game. And also to get them jointly synchronized and hyper over-indebted in the same way as the rest of the world, so we can a tissue, all fall down, ring a rosies, like it was meant to be. You can't be the only healthy person in the leper colony. You've all got to be lepers. And then you've got to take the vaccine. That's it. That's the game. So that's your Aussie dollar. You have had a snapback rally from the extremity of those lows. You've got to remember that that was exceptionally low. If you get the history from FXCM, they don't have too much history. I do D one more time. I'll see Saxo tends to have more history. No, they've got less. Bastardo. CFO Anders got a little bit more. No. Yeah, so the 55 is a relative extremity low. It's a real relative extremity low. You're late to the trade if you're thinking about getting into the trade now. You're very late to the trade. Let's see, how far have we got history here on ICE? It's much better. At least we're getting into the 80s here. There you go. That's how the Aussie has lost value to the dollar since the history of the 70s. It used to be worth 1.5. It's at probably an all-time low here and having a little bit of a bounce. But they're all going to lose value to the dollar. This is a huge broadening pattern right there. Which spells downside continuation. And you are grinding along the base of that grind line. You'll learn about grind lines in our content. So you spilled. You had further to go. And I would suggest after a rally, you probably have potentially more to go. So if the dollar's to have its huge mega melt up, guys, most things are going to lose value to it. The only ones I might suggest that could is Swiss franc and yen. Swiss franc and yen, but the Swiss franc might have a problem. If they get too ahead of the euro, they might have to proliferate and do spoiler things. So that's something you can find out more about when you see our evaluations in the community. So that's good. That's it for the news. That's it. We are going to get. So what's coming our way in Reset Land? So first of all, sub and hit the bell. Now, when you hit the bell on YouTube, guys, you've got to go all. Otherwise, YouTube decides. The default is personalization. The default is personalization. They'll give you the alert if they want to, providing if there's something else they think you should be watching, then they won't. Okay, so hit all, go to the bell and hit, you want all notifications on reset. This is what I suggest is coming. There's going to be an escalation of aggro between China and America. There's going to be invoices sent and threats and possible sanctions. There's going to be a winding back of the supply chain that relies on China. That's going to have growth effects that affect China. It's going to have potential shortage effects, initially in physical goods, but they might engineer food-related shortage effects. This could lead to social unrest, which will be tied with banks possibly doing some bail-ins or some form of financial pain on the poor and working class. No UBI, the lockdowns leave guys back maxed out. They're getting credit card letters threatening them with this and that. They're not getting the relief because they lost their work. This whole process of turning a low-end worker or even a middle-class worker and even some upper middle-class workers into totally reliant on state is not going to be a pleasant one. People are going to get pissed off and join crowds and throw stones at politicians and various houses. So there's going to be a bit of what looks like blowback to politicians, but that's going to see what you've been seeing in the French streets with the yellow vests be replicated in many places in the world, potentially. So they would need you to recognize that the police and the army is weapon of government, not civil servant to serve you as a law-abiding person. If you complain about how you handled, it will now become illegal. In fact, in South Africa during the apartheid years, they passed a law called illegal gatherings. If more than 10 people accumulated in one place outside, it was deemed an illegal gathering and could be broken up by the police. Similar laws, as absurd as it sounds, in the social distancing new world order that is being brought upon you by the Plandemic with the Porsche and Gulf colors coronavirus that I manufactured here and is very easy to catch, is coming our way. So watch out for that. You might need to think about that in terms of how you prep and for what you prep for. You're going to have to use this time as you come out of lockdown, and in various places they already have a schedule. You can only come out of lockdown in a certain way. They're kind of lifting it by degrees. You know, they're giving you small amounts of freedom. They're letting you into a bigger running pen, but you're still in a pen. Who the hell are they? They put it on just like that. They didn't stage it on. Who the hell are they to stage it off? Oh, critical workers. This is all about control. This is you learning. This is your leash, and this is how tight it gets. And only when master says it can be loosened, does it loosen. This is subordination and dominance training. You may as well go to a dominatrix in short leather pants and mask on and ask to be flogged. This is what's coming. You must do what mistress says you must do. And if she wants to put unorderly toys brutally into various orifices of your body, that's exactly what she's going to do. And you're going to comply because your hands are tied, you're on your knees, and you rely on her to let you out for when you want to make a little pee-pee. So that's the game. That's the game. It's about dominance. It's about asserting their power over you and putting you in a state of fear. And what do? The whole concept is, I am not afraid. I'm born a human, just like any other animal on this planet. I intend to roam the world and be free and exist. And I will not comply, and I will undermine you in all sensible and logical ways without being self-sacrificial. I will organize with others. I will fight against this dominance in a sensible way, not throwing myself under a tank that's rolling down the high street. And we will continue to assert and create potentially adverse feedback events for the people, the dark state in power, that actually have far less power than you realize if we all work together. But the great problem is you're a blockchain. You decentralize nothing. We need willpower, and the willpower is in small little fractals distributed like tiny little specks across this decentralized network of blockchain. And to make matters worse, there's a whole bunch of sheep DNA spilt and spread on a far greater volume all amongst you. You need to go like the Terminator, and the mercury needs to flow. You need to come together and become that force that works forward and undermines the control structure. You've got to build your wealth during this period. You've absolutely got to build your wealth during this period. Just as the one Zero Hedge article says, it's all about the words you're going to hear are taxation, grants, subsidies, bailouts. This is all government interventionism. There's nothing about liberty, independence, private, self-funded. There's nothing like that. These are the words that are dying. This is the period of Ayn Rand. Right here, right now. You are living it. This is Bolshevism marching forward at a rate you haven't seen. They have escalated their game with this quickly catch a coronavirus plandemic like never before. And you've got to decide how you're going to respond, because they've declared war on the human race. These are people that spend their time saying the war on, and they have declared war on you. And the notion that they say we're declaring war on coronavirus, coronavirus is the false construct that represents you, because you are all their coronaviruses that need vaccinating. That's the game, guys. And with that, I'm going to end quickly. I'll take 2 more questions. Do not comply, disobey, buy a coffee mug and a t-shirt from the sniper, which says some form of stuff. Do not listen to this animal speak that they use. It gives away the manner in which they think of you. Herd immunity. Herd is for livestock, not for humans. Herd is for livestock. Their language that they use gives their thinking pattern away. You are livestock to be managed, to be culled, and to be cut, to be sacrificed and eaten, to be slaughtered. That's right. Okay, all sniper channels are on the alerts. Good man, that's Jacques Soden. He's gone to the crypto sniper, he's hit sub. And I'm going to be doing crypto specific things, by the way. We've had a good run out of Bitcoin with a little bit of the USD weakness. It's having a rebound. I think it's going to be setting up, but there's also at some point going to be a little bit of an easing and then searching for that RH3. We'll talk more about that as things develop, and other coins. Bear in mind, Bitcoin is open source ledger. Anybody can check though. So start asking about fungibility and real privacy, because you can't have money that's just been used by illegal gun dealers and your name written on the back of a note along with all of them, because next thing you know, they come and arrest you as one of them as well. You've got to have real fungibility, which requires privacy. Your intention was to buy a bottle of wine, not to fund some guy buying an AK-47. Unless, of course, that's part of the libertarian move and the adverse feedback events you're planning for your local politician, in which case I have nothing further to say. Good. Thanks very much, guys. UK property thoughts, please, says Chris Boardman. So thoughts on all property, and UK, I'll use UK as a specific example. It's high density and there's a low amount of it about. I think there's people pushing for a land value tax, to tax the great land value owners. Best thing to do is to have any property in trust, like the Rothschilds that have property in Berkshire, trusts, and not just personally in your name. I think you will get greater degree of protection if that's the case. Also, I suggest that when the banks all start to fail and lending, and we have our rollover, absolute deflationary wet the bed moment, that for which the stock market, the first stock market crash was one such moment that led to Bitcoin crashing. We're waiting for an RH3 down to an RL3. In other words, a down leg move after this rally to the point. We might make a higher high first a down leg, a higher high, and then have a secondary, but we need another event that's going to be really, really fear-inducing. And I suspect all property during that period will be exceedingly difficult to sell. I think very few people are making plans about moving or upgrading home. Maybe some will make plans about downgrading home, I don't know. But I think the buyer's market and the ability to lend will determine property prices. I think the only person who's sure of a mortgage is someone who's putting 50% down, certainly at absolute minimum 70% down. Yes, there might be some 80% loan to value mortgages. The rates might be horrible though. So if you reduce the availability of products on lending and you require greater deposits, you reduce the pool of buyers. They can be more picky, supply and demand. There's going to be forced sellers who've run out of cash because of XYZ job not being closed, restaurateurs, various other things. So inside that environment, it's difficult not to see on thin volume of only forced sellers taking much lower prices in property the world over and in the UK. And as part of that process, in the long run, there may be auctions, and government and or approved hedge funds that are close to government will probably start acquiring properties, and you'll end up with mass mega landlords that have cozy relationships with government and essentially represent government proxies, and there will be social housing for all, and we'll all be rental extracted. That's my overview for most people for property. If you trade as a sniper and you build wealth and you let the whole thing fall over on its face, and you start bargain hunting with cash, or at least 50% near cash, I think you could buy exceedingly well an upgraded property, and the only downside you face is any future land value taxes, and of course the fact that you probably made yourself permanently resident in one particular place by virtue of where you live in terms of tax profile. So those are the things to consider on property. Listen to it again if there's a bit too much detail in there, but buy at the dip if you're happy with your current domicile and residence for tax and the laws and the current posture towards vaccines. If you're happy to take a vaccine and the UK is going to be dominant there, then buy in UK. But if you're not of mind to take vaccines, maybe research where you want to live. I think it's worth changing country if it's something you're not going to do. That's as good as I can get. How sharp is that logo on the beautiful DSLR? Just looking at it on this, and it's awesome, man. I hope you're digging the new setup. Takes a bit of kit, but get yourself a t-shirt, grab a grey t-shirt, grab the free view, and we'll be here to tell you more. So the next stages, more fighting between Russia and America, potential breaking up of the supply chain, possible social unrest into the summer. As we go into a summer of discontent, there could be further financial malaise where we have the second down leg, where you buy your cheap property with large amounts of cash that you've made by the sniper circle on your smart trading in a country that you're happy to live in. If you're all vax neutral, then carry on and do as you see, but I would certainly suggest doing some reading and learning in that space. And see you on Non-Farm. That's this Friday, coming 1 week from today, where we'll go into a hardcore chart bashing, looking for the trade, and we'll get the non-farm number and all the craziness that goes with the dollar. Is it strong? Is it weak? Etc. Short term now, dollar looks weak. The macro, the dollar milkshake remains. But right now, it doesn't look like it's going to push on. It looks like it's going to stall back for a while longer. This will affect many things. But at the moment, gold and silver not too strong, but they've had an early run. Bitcoin stronger. Speak to you later, guys. God bless you all. Thank you for watching. We appreciate no ads on this channel at all. We don't monetize. All we ask is a like and a share. If you've enjoyed it, the like, the share, if you think there's anyone who will do it. We appreciate you. Have a great weekend. And I may stream on the Sunday out of the market sniper on any ideas. We'll see how we feel. We'll see what news pops up. But the rest of all the good stuff is going on in the community, and I'll be back in there, including on the weekend. Bye for now, guys. Thanks for sharing, and catch you later.